Today we're going to get a little more practical, and I want to make sure that you're able to take away this information today and you're able to do something with it this holiday season. So I want to make sure that you're able to move through this holiday a little more sure of how you want to spend your day and your time, and that you have some things that you can actually do. So let me get you back to the top of our series here. So, your healthy holiday. Today, we're going to be focusing on some of the practical things that you may need as you're planning what you want to be doing this holiday season. So, if we talk about what should I be eating, how should I be handling that, I want to be sure that you have some things that feel comfortable with sharing with your family, because I know that everybody doesn't actually maybe do the entire holiday with their family. Maybe you have some particular things that are, hold on a second, 1 second here. I'm having a hard time getting this for you guys. That's what's holding me up here. For whatever reason, it doesn't want to show you. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay. Perfect. All right. Sorry about that. That was not working the way it's meant to today. So let's get back. Let's go backwards and start from the beginning. Okay, wonderful. So your healthy holiday today is about the practical things that you could be doing this holiday season to make sure that it is flawless and that you feel good. This is a lunch break series, so it's going to be short and sweet, but feel free to put any questions in chat. And I'm going to be giving you a resource that you can use with some healthy things you can do with your children in the way of nutrition. So there will be a resource for you attached to this one. But this series has 4 sessions. And if you've joined us for session 1, 2 already, we talked about common nutritional pitfalls. We talked about eating with intent last week. So a little mindfulness approach to eating and how our body needs to be before we start eating so that we're not in a state of stress when we're eating. So that was last week. Today, we are going to be talking about choosing wisely. So, what does that actually mean? When we start this season, and we are certainly in the season, and hold on 1 second. We're well into the season. It is already the 12th of December, and we are 13 days away from Christmas. So, when I say choose wisely, what I mean is ask yourself, how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel during this season? And maybe you can ask yourself, how do I currently feel? Because if you don't like how you feel right now, and this is from a health standpoint, we're looking at it through the eyes of how our body feels, how our maybe our minds feel, our stress levels. How do I feel versus how do I want to feel? So if you don't like how you feel right now, we have to make a plan, right? We have to do something differently if we want to feel differently. So, how do you want to feel as we get into the true holiday season next week and certainly the week after? And if you want to feel differently than you feel right now in this moment, then we need to actively plan for success. We have to be aware of what's happening, and we have to plan to have a successful holiday. So we can't let things just happen. We can't let the inevitable stressors of the season just fall over us, just flow over us. I like to have a visual of a wave passing over. We don't want to get knocked over by the holiday wave. And if you already feel like you're unsteady on your feet because there's so much going on, that's okay. And that's normal because, again, we are into the month of December. And as soon as that starts, it can feel a little overwhelming. But we don't want to ever get knocked over by the stressors of the holiday because we do have control over far more than we believe we do. So, this is where we think about actively planning for success because there is a formula to feeling good. There are proven strategies on how to handle stress, how to make a plan for your nutrition, and it's really just about making a plan and following through with it. Because how often have you made a plan or made a wish maybe, because I say if you want something but don't make a plan for it, then it's just a wish. It's not actually a goal. How many times over the seasons have you wanted something, but you don't do any plan to make it happen? So when it doesn't happen, you just say, oh, yeah, that didn't work out. But did you actively do anything to make it work out? I said there's a formula to feeling good because there is. There are many ways that you can feel good and take control over this holiday season. You just have to choose a strategy and stick to it. I think that's one of our difficulties as human beings is sticking to something that we decided we wanted to do. And that's about making a commitment to ourselves. And if you're on this call, you are part of our family. So you are a mom, you're a dad. And if you're a mom or a dad, I'm sure you often make commitments to your children. You tell them you're going to do something. You might call it a promise or a commitment. And I'm sure you do it. You do everything in your power to make it happen. If you make a commitment to your child that you are going to show up at that event, that you are going to pick them up at that time, that you are going to make that special food that they love, if you make that commitment, you're doing it. So, what I'm asking you today is to make that same commitment to yourself and stick with it because that's your value. How you value yourself has a lot to do with how you stick to those commitments to yourself no matter what. You are the most important person in your family. And that might be a hard thing to believe, but you are because you have a great influence on the people in your family. You may be the center of your family, at least your household. I can guess that many people depend on you. And if you stopped doing your role in the home, many people would notice the difference. Things wouldn't function as smoothly. Certain responsibilities wouldn't happen. So I encourage you to start treating yourself like you are the most important person in your family. And that's not from a place of selfishness or self-centeredness. That's from a reality standpoint. That's just the reality. And if you have that type of understanding and value in your role and your influence, then you will do anything to keep your commitment to yourself. So I want you to think about that when you are making a plan and you are about to give up on that plan or change that plan. Think about that to yourself. Would I not keep this commitment if I made it to my child or my loved one? Or would I follow through? And if the answer is yes, you would follow through, then I want you to do that for yourself. All right? Are you with me? It's a big ask, especially if we're used to putting ourselves last. But if you're putting yourself last and you're not feeling great right now as I'm talking to you, how's that going for you? If you can say, I don't feel that great about my nutrition, I don't feel that great about my energy levels, I don't feel that great about my physical activity. If you don't feel that great and you're putting yourself last, that's not working out for you too well, is it? It doesn't work out for us too well, but we continue to do it over and over. So I'm challenging you We are ending 2023. I'm challenging you to make this the last year that you put yourself in that position because we have control and we can honor ourselves in the way that we treat ourselves. And in honoring ourselves by putting ourselves first, we show others how to treat us and we show others where they need to where they need to put themselves in the equation, right? So we're that role model, we're that impact, we're that influence. So I wanted to start it with that before we get into the actual tips because I think that's key. Because I can give you information, knowing and doing are two different things. I can give you recipes, I can give you strategies, but if you don't do them, it's not going to work, right? The systems work when we work them. It works when we work it. So, without further ado, let's get to some systems. Let's get to some things that we can do, even if we are not in charge of making this holiday happen for our family. Maybe you join other family members at a different home to celebrate. Maybe you are the one that puts on the whole show and people come to you. Either way, these are simple principles that everyone can follow and that I guarantee will change how you feel at the end of the holiday. You know how often we just feel awful in this month? We just feel like, how many cookies am I going to eat? And why do I feel so drained? And fill in the blank. But we don't take into account the active role in that scenario that we have and what can we do. It's not all about what happens around us, it's about what can we do for us. So the first thing that you can do is to hydrate. And this one's so simple that I think people overlook it time and time again. We overlook it because we can't even fathom, we can't begin to believe that water would have such an effect on our well-being, but it does. It does. So maybe it's as simple as making your water goal. This is the time of year where people might be having other types of beverages besides water, but make sure that you're having a glass of water for every one of those beverages. If you're having a special juice or an alcoholic beverage, you certainly need to be hydrating because those are dehydrating. So for everyone, make sure that you have that glass of water and you have it in between. Hydration is key to a happy holiday. Oftentimes we eat because we're actually dehydrated and our body is just trying to recuperate nutrients. So when you're hungry, make sure that you have a glass of water first before you take that first bite. That's going to give you the true measure of how hungry you are. Perhaps you are in fact hungry, and that's totally fine. But drinking that glass of water first ensures that it's true hunger and you can tap into your body's natural cues instead of having your system a little messed up because you're actually thirsty first. So, water first. Veggies next. If you don't like vegetables, and some people don't, I challenge you to find some that you do like. There are so many vegetables, not just the classic ones that you're used to. But if you go in the grocery store and you hang out in the produce section, you will see vegetables that you've never even seen before. You'll see things that you don't know what they are and you have to Google them. It happens to me all the time. I had some mushrooms last night actually called lion's mane mushrooms. They looked like furry, strange mushrooms. I didn't know what to do with them, but I Googled it and I ended up just sauteing them as a side dish in a little avocado oil and some salt and pepper. And then they were delicious and they have a lot of health properties. So be brave. If you don't like broccoli, then don't eat broccoli, but find vegetables that you do like. Be curious about what you may like if you try it. You may not like broccoli prepared one way, but you might like it another way. For example, you might not like it steamed, but you might like it roasted. So we have to be curious about trying things And that's how our children get curious too, by leading the way, by us modeling. It's really important that as we are doing this discovery process for ourselves, that we don't um, steer our children away from things just because we don't like them. We have to be careful how we say things. If you say I don't like a certain food, it's almost guaranteed that your child may shy away from that food or eventually say, "Oh, I don't like that." But it's really just because they've heard us saying it. So veggies next means try to fill your plate with veggies. So if after that glass of water during your holiday happening, fill half of your plate with veggies. So if you imagine a plate, you want half of that plate to be full of veggies. And this is just one example. Try to roast veggies instead of just buttering them. Because when we roast veggies, we have the oil in and of itself, if we're using extra virgin olive oil or something like that, has great properties. And sometimes we just throw the butter on and it's just overkill. Maybe we can start cutting back a little bit. Maybe we do like buttered veggies, and that's great. But maybe we want to be a little more mindful about how much we put on, because oftentimes we don't need as much as we think we do. So we generally put on more than we need. So maybe that's a change that you want to make, just cutting back a little bit or trying vegetables prepared in a different way. Then the next suggestion here for your holiday plan is lean proteins like chicken, turkey, or a fish like salmon. You want to focus on lean proteins. So steaks and ground beef, they would generally have a higher fat content. So we want to look for the leaner meats like chicken, turkey, or a whitefish or a salmon. And we want that to be 1/4 of our plate. So remember, I said imagine your plate and you cut it in half and you put veggies on that side. And then you want to cut that other half in half. And you want to make sure that that's your portion of your protein. So if your family makes turkey for Christmas or maybe ham, ham is not a lean protein, but it is a protein source. It just has a higher fat count. But you want to put that in the 1/4 of your plate. So that's how much you would be putting there. And then the last is your grains. So you want to prioritize whole grains. That would be the last fourth of your plate. But that's not always possible. Sometimes it's pasta and it's, or white roll or bread or something like that. Prioritize whole grains when you can. And if you enjoy them, great. But at least try to control your portion of grains. And if it's not whole grains, be ever more mindful of making sure that it doesn't take up your whole plate, that it's just a fourth of it. And if you're wondering, how are you going to do this? This seems difficult. Start where you are. So the holidays are about enjoyment. We don't want to be depriving ourselves in any way. We want to be enjoying because it comes around once a year. So if you have a favorite dish or someone in your family prepares something that you absolutely love, you don't want to be giving up on that. You want it. You should have it. So make sure that you plan that into your day. That's totally okay. But maybe you don't need to have an entire plate full. Maybe you can take a portion and then take some home and eat it over the next few days and enjoy it more frequently over the next few days, as opposed to one time sitting. Sometimes we take a huge portion of something because we think, oh, I'm just going to eat this now. It's not that great for me, but I'm going to eat it now and then I'm not going to eat it again. Why not flip that idea and say, I'm going to eat it now and tomorrow and the next day and the next day because I really enjoy it. But if you have a portion that is more in sync with what your body needs, then you can do that. You can indulge day after day during the holiday season because you have a bit of boundaries around that. Okay. So then we have two categories here: appetizers and desserts. So think about appetizers that are veggie based. You might have some sort of spinach dip, or you might do fresh veggies with a hummus dip or something like that. So when you think of your appetizers, try to think, how many veggies can I get in? And a lot of times we can hide our veggies in dips and things like that, or in soups. Is a great appetizer. We can hide our veggies in there. And how do we hide our veggies? Well, we can chop them up very finely. We can also blend them. So when we blend our veggies, sometimes that's helpful with children because they can't actually detect, they can't actually pick it out because it's just part of the broth. So think about blending. There is a cookbook that I had many years ago, and it's called Deceptively Delicious. And it was all about hiding veggies in the food for your child. So, for example, if they love mac and cheese, you could cook up some butternut squash and blend it, or some carrots and steam them, and then blend them up. And then slowly over time, you start adding that to the sauce. And you don't do it all at once because, of course, they would detect a difference. But over time, you might add a tablespoon and you mix it up. They won't notice. And then you might add 2 tablespoons. So you see how we can incorporate more veggies, not always so openly, like having a side of veggies, but sometimes we can blend it into things that we already like a certain pasta sauce. Maybe we can blend up any other type of veggie that you enjoy and add that to the sauce, but it just becomes part of the sauce. So that's a little trick for you. And then desserts. So think about fruit as a dessert. You can do fruit parfaits where you're layering different fruits, especially like holiday berries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, and maybe you put some Cool Whip in between the layers, and it's a fun thing to do with kids as well. You can also cook some vegetables, some desserts, some fruit, like you can bake apples and put some cinnamon on top, and maybe with a small scoop of ice cream. And you can enjoy that where you're getting an element of fruit in what you're eating as well. So just think about how you might be able to make that happen over your holiday season. There's a lot of ways to do it. The key is to just take a step. So we don't want to be paralyzed in the overwhelm. We just want to pick something and go with it. You're not going to be able to incorporate all of these changes with everything else that's going on in your life, but pick one thing. If it's just hydration, you're going to feel better overall. If it's trying to incorporate more veggies, if that's your only goal, is to approach every day with how many veggies can I incorporate in my meals, you're going to feel differently and your body's going to thank you. So that is it for today. We are near the end of our lunch break series, but I did want to you, as I mentioned, that we have, I am going to share, let's see. Okay, I am going to share in the chat, if I can figure out how to do that, I'm going to share in the chat a resource for you that is going to give you some ideas. I just want to see here. I should have it up still. I'm going to give you some examples right now. So, for example, we might want to do fruit and veggie Christmas trees with our children, or turkey and cheese snowmen, Santa Claus strawberries, even a healthy hot cocoa. So a healthy version of hot cocoa would be using unsweetened cocoa powder, a small amount of honey or maple syrup, and low-fat milk. And we can top that with mini marshmallows. So that's a way that we can actually incorporate some things that aren't just a boxed mix that we find, and we can actually have something delicious for our children to have over the holiday. So I have it. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to add this right now. It's called Healthy Holiday for Kids, and you should see that already. And that is just a PDF with a whole bunch of things that you can do over this holiday season. Just fun little things. And if you're always looking, I mean, my children, for example, like any children, love a good bread and butter. That was our Thanksgiving. After you put all the time, effort, and energy, the most eaten item is a roll. But here's some ways that you can actually incorporate other things and try to sneak those veggies, or at least those proteins, in and still make it fun. Like if you have some Christmas cookie cutouts, like a snowman cutout, or maybe you have a Christmas tree cutout, maybe that's what you take a piece of whole grain bread, put turkey and cheese, make them into Christmas trees. There's also ones on there about reindeer and all different things that you can make with your children over this holiday season. And again, this isn't meant to add stress. So if you can't handle that right now and you're like, scrap it, I can't even make a Santa strawberry at this point because there's too much going on, that's okay. I just wanted to give you a resource. I wanted you to have something that you could take away today that you could actually work with. And maybe you won't get to it before this holiday, but maybe after. Sometimes it's the week after Christmas when the dust settles and things are a little calmer, and then we can get to those things. So don't discount the end of the year just because Christmas and the holiday is so busy. I also counted that next week after before New Year's. Maybe that's the time when you readjust. Maybe that's the time when you focus on your new initiatives, your new intentions for the following year. So there's never it's never too late. There's never a bad time to focus on your health and wellness, and remember your role in your family. Everyone generally looks to the person that's on this call. Would you not agree? Because the person on this call is the person that's making time for it. So if you think about other people in your family, the one that's making the time to listen to new information, to get the recipes, to buy the ingredients, is usually the one that has the most influence on how the family eats. So if you are the one doing the purchasing, you're the one with the most influence on your family's patterns. So it's really important that you embrace that role and you recognize the positive impact that you can have. And even if you feel like you're not where you want to be today, that's okay because it's a journey. It's not a destination. We're not trying to get to a certain place. We're trying to change habits over time for sustainable in sustainable ways, meaning we can stick to it. It's not something that we can't handle or stick to because it's too hard, but we can actually build in practices and habits that we can do because they're not difficult. They actually make us feel better. And so if you take one small step this holiday season, choose one of those strategies that we mentioned. It could be hydration, it could be more veggies, it could be focusing more on the lean proteins as opposed to the fattier proteins. Maybe it's scrapping those high caloric appetizers and going for fresh veggies this year, or instead of all those cakes and pies and cookies, incorporating some of the fresh fruit. Not saying do away with your holiday traditions. I'm just saying maybe we can find a little room for some new traditions that help us to feel better overall. So thank you for joining us today. We're going to cut it off now because we are at our 30-minute mark and it's a lunch break series. So we will see you next week for the final session in this series, which will wrap this up. But we will be continuing in the new year different initiatives to help you and your family live the healthiest lives possible. So have a great day, everyone. We'll see you soon.